Hello, 8th grade algebra students. This is Mr. Roush, and I'm going to be talking about Module 16.3, which is solving ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 by factoring. So if you remember from yesterday and the day before, that lesson from 16.2, we actually had to factor this out and find our zeros here. So to factor this, we have to find our multiples of 6 that add up to a 5. So it would be x plus 3 times x plus 2 equals 0. So then you had to set these up. So x plus 3 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. So subtract 3 from both sides, x equals negative 3. Subtract 2 from both sides, x equals negative 2. That should be review from the last lesson that we did. Now the only new thing that's going to happen here is we're going to have that ax squared. So this is going to be the harder factoring and using your ACB charts. So from here, if you had it factored just like this, it's going to be the same process as before. So you're going to have your 3x plus 5 equals 0, 2x minus 1 equals 0. So we're going to subtract 5 from both sides and divide by 3. Negative 5/3. Then same thing on this side. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. So 2x equals 1, divide by 2. And there's your answer. So instead of having usually whole numbers or integers, you are going to now have rational numbers with fractions or decimals. So as always, you can pause here, take notes, copy this down. Now we're going to talk about problem example 1 on page 580. So we have a 3x squared plus x equals 6x plus 2. So we want to set this up to be able to factor it. So we want to set it up equal to 0. So what we're going to have to do is subtract 6x from both sides. And then we're going to have to subtract the 2 from both sides. So I'll do it a little quicker just because you guys know how to move stuff from one side to the other. So we're going to be left with 3x squared minus 5x minus 2 equals 0. So the minus 2 came from that 2, and the minus 6, negative 6 plus x is negative 5x. So now we have to factor this using our ACB chart. So our A is 3. So we're going to have 1 and 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. Now our C is going to be negative 2. So we need a positive and a negative, so negative 1, 2, 1, negative 2. Negative 2, 1, 2, negative 1. Now we want to find out what goes to our B, which is negative 5. Remember, we're going to multiply these outside ones. 1 times 2, 2, minus 3 is negative 1. Does not work. 1 times negative 2, plus 3 equals 1. Does not work. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times negative 2, negative 6 equals negative 5. This one works. So what we're going to have to do is we'll have our 1x and our 3x. Now we multiplied 1 times 1, so that has to be opposite of the 1, and that's the positive, and this is minus 2. So now we just have to solve it like we've been doing. So x minus 2 equals 0, 3x plus 1 equals 0. So we're going to add 2 to both sides, x equals 2. Then we have to minus 1 divided by 3, x equals negative 1/3. So that's going to be one of the types of problems that we're going to have with this. So you can pause it here, take notes, do what you have to do. All right, so now we have some special cases that we're going to talk about. So the first case is if you have a number that you can factor out. So if you look on page 581, this is example 2. So if you have 4x squared minus 24x plus 36 equals 0, you always want to look to see if there's something that you can factor out. And here I can factor out a 4. So this is going to be x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Now you have to look at what you factored out. Does 4 equal 0? No, it doesn't. So we can just get rid of that 4. It's not going to be one of your answers. It's not going to do anything with your answers. Now we have to factor this out. And you can say, look, x squared, what times what equals 9? That adds to a negative 6. I can already see it's negative 3. So it's going to be x minus 3 times x minus 3 equals 0. So then when we write this out, x minus 3 equals 0, x equals 3. Now, if you did notice, this is a perfect square trinomial. That's perfect square. That's perfect square, and that is 2 times a times b. So it is a perfect square trinomial. So if you take a look at example B, example B has your 9x squared minus 36x equals 0. Always look for something to factor out. It'll make your life so much easier. So I'm going to factor out a 9. X squared minus 4 equals 0. Now 9 does not equal 0, so it's gone. So we are going to factor this out. Let's see if it's a difference of squares. Perfect square, difference. So it's going to be x plus 2 times x minus 2 equals 0. Then you have to set them equal to, so x plus 2 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0. Minus 2, x equals negative 2, x equals positive 2. Now the only other problem we're going to talk about are real world problems, where whenever you're dealing with a real world problem, it has to almost always be a positive number if you're talking about distance or time. So for example, the real world problem on the top of 582, for example 3, says when a baseball player hits a pitch into the air, the height of the ball at time t is modeled by h equals negative 16t squared plus the initial velocity time plus the height. So we want to find out, so our h equals negative 16t squared plus 47t plus 3. Since 3 feet is 3 feet high off the ground, and this is your 47 feet per second velocity. So what we have to do is, instead of the h, we want to set it equal to 0. Now there's only one problem that we have to do is we have to factor out a negative 1 because we want to make that a positive 16t squared. So here we're going to factor out a negative 1 by multiplying everything by negative 1. So it's going to be left with a 16t squared minus 47t minus 3 equals 0. Now we have to factor this out using the ACB chart. So A is 116. Your C is going to be negative 3, so it's going to be negative 1, 3, 1, negative 3, negative 3, 1, 3, negative 1. Now our B is negative 47. So let's see what we have here. 1 times 3 is 3. 16 plus negative 16 does not work. 1 times negative 3 plus 16, that doesn't work. 1 times 1 is 1 minus 48 equals negative 47. We have a winner. So now we just have to set it up and solve it. So we're going to have our x, 16x equals 0. So we multiplied 1 times 1, so it has to be here. That's your plus 1. This is your minus 3. So now what we have to do is solve this. So x minus 3 equals 0. 16x plus 1 equals 0. Plus 3. X equals a positive 3. That works. This one is going to be minus 1. 16x equals negative 1 divided by 16. X equals negative 1 over 16. Now those are both answers, but one of them is not correct. So if you look, it does say the solutions are, the only one that has to be positive is the 3, since what we're finding is how long will it be until the ball hits the ground. you cannot have negative seconds, so the negative one is gone. So your only answer is going to be number 3. So x equals 3. So if you have any questions, please email me. Please reach out to me. I hope this e-learning is working and you're actually learning something instead of just sitting home being bored. All right. Thank you.